Hello and welcome everyone to the second round of World Rapid 2023. We have Magnus Carlsen in a rare instance where he's entered before his opponent, and in fact, none of the players are on the stage. Maybe he was not aware of the starting time of this game. He has the black pieces against Denis Khismatullin, who's rated 2507. You can see how Magnus is calmly adjusting all his pieces. The arbiters begin to arrive. Maybe Magnus is in this mode today that he wants to arrive early and sort of focus himself. His opponent comes to the board. Magnus shakes hands with him. Denis Khismatullin takes his chair and we are ready to begin. Magnus has the black pieces, Denis has white, opens the game with 1 d4, knight comes out to f6, c4, and now pawn up to e6. Knight comes out and Magnus chooses the queen's gambit declined. Denis brings his other knight out. Magnus has a variety of options to choose here. He goes for the semi-Slav with c6, and white can go for sharp lines with bishop g5. But if Denis is not in an ambitious mood, yes, he goes e3, which is also an ambitious way to play. Magnus plays his knight to d7, and now queen comes to c2. This is the anti-Meran. You are waiting with the development of your bishop on f1, because when it moves, then black generally takes on c4 and makes it move again. But Denis actually takes on d5 and Magnus quickly takes back, because now this has equalized the space in the center. But he has a concrete way to play. He wants to come here and give a check. Magnus gives a check, blocks, takes the bishop, and now Denis takes his time and takes it back with the knight. Magnus quickly castles. Now the knight going to c7 makes no sense as there is no check. So black is doing pretty okay. The position out of the opening is slightly better for white. The reason being, this bishop which remains on the board is slightly superior to the black bishop on c8. He goes bishop a6. Very calm move. If you go knight c7, there is rook c8 taking this knight. But Denis castles. Magnus chops it off. Bishop takes and plays a6. You can feel that white is slightly better if he brings his bishop back, but Denis's move, bishop takes d7, is a clear indication that he doesn't want to fight for the full point here. A draw is okay for him against the world-class player Magnus Carlsen is, especially at endgames. So he sees that there's only one open file, the pawn structure is symmetrical, let's trade off the rooks, let's trade the queens later, let's trade everything and then make a draw. But Magnus says, my queen is slightly more active. I'm attacking the b2 pawn. Rook c2 played by Denis. He's very calm, cool. Magnus, what a nice move. Knight e8. He wants to bring his knight to d6. And look at these two squares. Knight comes out to f3. And now he takes the rook. Queen takes. Suddenly it's white who has the control of the c file. But black can put his knight on d6. That's what Magnus does. And try to fight for the c file. Denis now pushes the queen away with a4. Will Magnus move forward with queen b4? Maybe not, because then knight e5, queen c7 could be dangerous. So he goes queen e8, and now Denis enters the position with queen to c7, attacking the knight and also the pawn. So Magnus quickly offers his queen for an exchange, and Denis can now simply take it, or he can actually bring his rook to c1 to defend the queen. Very calm, cool play by Khismatullin, and I think many players here would agree to a draw. Magnus trades off the rooks as well. There you have it, a very equalish endgame. But that's the thing about Magnus Carlsen. He's built an entire career on grinding equal endgames, and we should learn from him how he does it. First, he kicks the knight away. Okay, where will the knight go now? The knight goes back to d3, a fine central square. King is activated. King is a very important piece in the endgame, and Khismatullin also follows it. Magnus brings his king. Denis also brings his king. This position is dead equal, but you have to see how Magnus plays. Now first, Denis pushes a pawn. One small thing has happened is that the e4 square has become slightly weak. Magnus pushes his pawn on a5. Denis starts to gain space on the king side. Magnus moves his king, making way for the knight to take up this central square. For now, it feels like Denis is the one who's kind of playing aggressively in this endgame, and Magnus doesn't have a plan really. But all that Magnus needs is to create a weakness. So he plays his knight to e4, d6, trying to go to the e4 square. Denis pushes his pawn forward and Magnus fixes these pawns now. In some ways, Magnus's pawns are also weak, but the white knight doesn't have too many squares. Now you must calmly wait here. Knight f2, that's a good move. You're waiting. Magnus will also wait here, I believe. No, he goes f5. He forces. Now if you take here, you will see that this pawn becomes lonely. So he pushes his pawn and Magnus again waits with his king. Very important to wait again, but he brings his knight. Now Magnus jumps in. You will see that there's a check threatened to pick up the pawn. But it's important to move your knight back because taking this pawn would trap the knight sort of on that square. But he gives a check. Now Magnus moves his king to the side. And if you take here, g takes h6, the beauty now, which I think Khismatullin completely missed, is that after a check here, king here, knight takes pawn, king f8 or f6, the knight is trapped. And I think that's the reason why he plays king d3. But now you will notice that while black can calmly chop off the pawn here and come back with his knight, white can never take this pawn because it traps his knight. What a unbelievable turn around here. From a dead equal position, Magnus is now completely winning, and it changed in a matter of few moves. How does Magnus Carlsen do it? Well, he creates weakness. He sometimes entices his opponent to push the pawns. He just understands endgame so well. Now he pushes the pawn. Khismatullin says, hey look, I'm stopping your pawn. There's no way for you to push it forward. But Magnus reorganizes his pieces. He first brings his knight to the center of the board. King moves back. And now he goes knight. Where is he going with his knight? Knight to f6. And maybe the knight now, where will it head from f6 is the big question. He goes to d7. Whoa, Magnus is going knight b6. So knight h4, he attacks the a4 pawn, the king stops it, and now the e3 pawn is attacked. Khismatullin tries to defend it, but now he has allowed Magnus's knight to come in with h4, h3 coming in. Khismatullin resigns. What a grind by Magnus Carlsen. This was beautiful. Just from a completely dead equal position, he managed to win the game. And I think one of the main reasons why he won was because Khismatullin was too he wanted to play for draw. He wanted to play for equality, and that you can never do against Magnus Carlsen.
I'm on Wilder, and we are going to revolutionize how social media works.